Chapter 191 opens with a chill in the air and the ground trembling not from power, but from presence. Out of the moon-drenched forest steps a figure with glacial eyes and white hair like fallen starlight, the immortal himself. His gaze alone cracks the pride of the four sorcerers, sending them stumbling backward like shadows chased by dawn. Lu Jin, fists still clenched from a moment ago, suddenly finds his fury swallowed by reverence. When asked what's going on, he snaps to attention, reporting that these three are the feared sorcerers of Quangqing Masters of Despair, tormentors of the broken. He pleads for justice, begs for obliteration. The immortal answers with a voice like judgment echoing across epochs. Villains have no place beneath his banner. He, the great love immortal, a paragon wrapped in myth and might, declares that their end is now. But as Lu Jin listens, he senses something twisted beneath that radiant conviction, a subtle fracture between word and will. Yet, in the face of such divine stature, all he can do is bow and watch. In the shattered depths of the archive of forgotten realms, where time's leftovers whisper through broken myths and timelines long erased, Alex Locke steps beyond mortality. His presence alone freezes the Void Part Man, part legend, all storm. They said he healed the broken, split thunder with a breath, rewrote fate with a glance. Now, as the four sorcerers tremble before him, every tale they've heard becomes dread incarnate. Their pleas echo through memory, desperate to escape the spiral of judgment. But Alex doesn't speak with mercy. He walks with destiny chained to his steps. When they beg for forgiveness, he scoffs. Redemption, that's not his story. Villains stay villains. Goodness isn't a mask you wear in fear. As the air thickens with unspoken verdicts, even the archive watches in silence. There's no need for thunder. Alex is the storm. Alex's disdain-laced speech mocks mortal arrogance before he blurs through space, his white-lit fist detonating the earth into a crater and erasing his foe, the shockwave leaving nearby sorcerers trembling. It's a high-octane sequence that reads like a classic American comic power flex, delivering crisp, cinematic impact, while also foreshadowing the narrative tension of matching such overwhelming might and exhilarating set piece that keeps the saga's stakes sky high and readers hooked. Then came Alex's voice, laced with cosmic scorn, as if speaking not to a foe, but to the very notion of defiance itself. A blaze of glory? You think you've earned that? Who whispered such arrogance into the ears of an insect? Do you not grasp what gods are revest, untranslatable, born of raw supremacy that shatters lesser minds? When ants glimpse a god, they drown in madness, their souls cracked by truths too immense to bear. And with that, he moved no flair, no ceremony, just inevitability. A single strike, wrapped in white spiritual fire, descended like the judgment of forgotten epochs. The land ruptured, exploding upward with primal fury, as if Earth itself recoiled from the blow. Where his adversary once stood, only a black abyss remained, rimmed in bloodlight. The chill that followed wasn't from weather, but from the unspoken realization that this wasn't a man, it was myth incarnate. The four sorcerers stood frozen, their hearts pounding in sync with the echo of the blow, their minds looping the impossible. They never even saw him move. 1 second, presence. The next, erasure. That's when it sank. And Alex wasn't just feared, he was legend. And legends don't play by the rules of mortals. Yet even as dread gripped their bones, none of them fled. They didn't come to yield. Gowning activated the 12 emotional labyrinth array to crush Alex's meridians and shatter his emotional core, but when the formation flared, the expected pathways were gone. In their place stood a wall, vast and unmovable, stretching like the horizon itself. It wasn't a shield, it was a meridian. One of Alex's... The shock cracked Gowning's logic. He'd seen power before, but never like this. While Dumei laced the air with her mind, altering pollen, Alex didn't dodgy, let it fall on him like spring dust. She smirked, sure of victory, until seconds turned to minutes and he stood untouched. What she couldn't know was that Alex's infinity had long transcended such tricks. The poison wasn't ignored, it was nullified before it could even hope to matter. Shen Chong, seeing his comrades' attacks dissolve like smoke against a mountain, felt fear claw at his gut. The fists he once raised with confidence now fell limp, and his courage evaporated in the gravity of the impossible. Then he tried to provoke anyone but the battle had already answered. Alex Locke wasn't just strong, he was untouchable. Only then did they stop, hearts pounding, breath ragged. Shen Chong wiped sweat from his brow, voice shaky. I can't believe we made it out alive. That immortal, he let us go. Gowning, still gasping, stared into the distance. That wasn't just strength, that was something else. That slap like reality itself cracked. That white energy, it wasn't power, it was fate roaring. He shuddered. Standing there, it wasn't facing a man, it was standing before the will of the cosmos. Dumei, pale but composed, steadied her breath. We're not going back. That hall? It's not for mortals like us. I'm disappearing for a while, maybe years until that force returns to the sky. This world's gotten too loud, too divine. Then, without warning, the sky split. Their instincts screamed, danger surged through their bones, eyes locked, panic hit. No, they cried, but the heavens didn't wait. Lightning silent, searing crashed down. It ignored wood and stone, choosing only flesh. In an instant, no trace remained. No echo, just air. They stopped just long enough to breathe, thinking they'd somehow survive. One muttered in disbelief, still shaken by the memory of that single white glow Slopoforce that felt less like a man and more like the sky itself crashing down. Another tried to sound brave, but her calm couldn't hide the fear in her voice. She spoke of laying low, of escaping the madness, of waiting until the storm passed. But fate had already decided. In the next instant, without sound or warning, lightning ripped through the heaven sphere, divine, unavoidable. It ignored the walls, it ignored the world. And in less than a second, they were gone. Nothing remained. Just when they thought they'd cheated death, the Reaper came grinning Alex's punchline to their fleeting relief. Their joy turned sour as the truth dropped. This was no survival. It was hell, and they were already in it. Alex's twisted humor played God with their Fatino escape, no second chance. The heavens themselves rejected their souls, reducing them to dust beyond rebirth. The next morning, the innkeeper would find nothing but 3 sad piles of ash. Back in the shadowy peaks of the Taoist Hall, Lu Jin watched, stunned, as 3 sorcerers vanished like smoke. He turned to Alex, confused. Why let them go? Alex's smile was a razor. Because death is boring. Letting them hope before I end them? Now that's fun. Lu Jin began to object, but Alex cut him off cold. They're finished. I said it. You doubt me? One glance at the ashes told Lu Jin all he needed. No, sir. Not at all. Just when they thought they'd dodged death's grip, it came crashing back with cosmic vengeance because, in their celebration, they failed to see the truth. They were already trapped in hell. And Alex? His twisted sense of humor made it all the worse. No resurrection, no second chance the celestial thunder wiped their souls from existence. The next morning, the innkeeper found only 3 smoldering piles of ash where living bodies once stood. Meanwhile, far in the rear mountain of the Taoist Hall, Lu Jin watched as 3 of the sorcerers vanished, stunned. Why spare them? He asked. But Alex, ever the myth-making manipulator, gave only a cold smile. Because death without despair is boring. Let them hope, let them crawl, then crush them. I said they were doomed. Still doubt me? One look at the ashes was all it took. Lu Jin didn't ask again. If, after ascending to transcendent heights, he discarded his original purpose and pursued power for its own sake, he'd lose himself, not master, but slave to strength. It's a truth as old as myth, yet countless have fallen to it. His pause at Mount Longhu wasn't for respite, was a calculated interlude, giving his enemies time to marshal their might, because a crushed opponent without struggle offers no thrill. As he stepped toward the stronghold, eyes hidden in shadows tried to trace his path. But even holding back his cosmic aura, his presence was a tidal wave. One by one, they fell swatted from the sky, crushed without touch. His body alone, a weapon from beyond the known laws, moved like a living paradox. Mountains would split, seas would part, yet he simply waved and shockwaves turned flesh to vapor. When silence returned, only surveillance machines dared linger. High above, drones tracked his journey, their lenses straining to capture a being who now walked outside the bounds of the world. But they too were nothing watchers, witnessing the stride of a myth that refused to end. In this lightning-charged Seto piece, a newcomer to a super-powered realm strides onto the battlefield. The assassin had never felt fear like this. That man wasn't human, he was something far worse. Forget the payday, nothing was worth crossing paths with that monster. A real assassin knows when to vanish, not fight. It's not about brute force or racking up a body count, it's about survival, staying alive long enough to spend the cash. Clutching his prized swift talismans, ancient tools of escape he'd saved for a nightmare scenario just like this, he slapped them onto his body. Instantly, his form blurred, vanishing down the shadowed alleys with speed even a racing bullet train couldn't match. Decades of refining evasive techniques made him a ghost, a streak of motion dubbed Shadow by those who feared and respected him. For a heartbeat, he thought he'd made it. Thinnes on his brow, and darkness swallowed him whole. A single bullet, flicked like an afterthought, whistled through the air and bored a perfect hole through his skull, clean and final. No splash. No warning. Just silence. Far behind, the figure didn't even glance back, just kept walking. He didn't expect the Wangs to send hired shadows instead of their own blade sliver move. For a family that bleeds wealth instead of blood, throwing cash at killers was just a casual flick of the wrist. They knew Alex couldn't be taken down that easily. This was never about victory, just about draining him, chipping away his focus. As he edged closer to their territory, the attacks thickened like vultures circling a wounded god. Then came the bridge silent, still but screaming with danger. Even without his 6 eyes, Alex felt it, the bated breath of a trap. Beneath, death slept in the form of high-powered explosives. Eyes watched from every angle, ready to blow him sky high, then swoop in to finish the job if he twitched. But Alex? He just grinned. This was his stage. He sauntered onto that bridge like it was Sunday morning, luring them in with casual defiance. Somewhere nearby, a finger twitched on a trigger. Boom! The sky split. The earth trembled. The game began. Boom! The sky lit up as flames roared and the bridge disintegrated into a storm of rock and steel, crashing into the river like the fist of a vengeful god. One assassin let out a shaky breath, trembling at the scale of destruction to tons of explosives, all meant for one target. That monster's toast, he muttered, hoping the nightmare was over. For days, they'd lived under crushing fear, all for the lure of $2 billion to take down the so-called immortal master. Sure, the stories about Alex sounded like comic book madness, but money makes fools brave. They studied him analyzing every move, every whisper of his thunder manifestation. That reality-shattering palm strike ant still believed they could strike when he blinked. But that fantasy shattered like glass. Bullets? Useless. Bombs? Laughed off. The man was a walking paradox. Each failed attack only deepened their dread, revealing a truth no one dared admit. They weren't hunting a man. They were poking at a legend wrapped in myth. A living storm who refused to die, encased in an invisible force field that flicks away bullets, toxins, and even roar. There's no way Alex can escape this. Or so they thought, because even as certainty bled from their voices, dread pooled behind their eyes. They'd faced him before, only to watch their precision unravel, comrades fall like scripted tragedies, and Alex emerge, untouched, as if written beyond their reach. This time, they believed the explosion would erase him, body and myth alike, yet contingency plans still whispered of doubt, ready for a second strike if he dared survive. Smoke curled like memory chains, slow to lift, but heavy with anticipation. Killers once methodical now gambled everything on one final blow, their professionalism shattered by a man who made survival feel like prophecy. And then the smoke parted. The bridge was annihilated, swallowed by water, yet in the epicenter of destruction, a figure hovered, untouched by ruin. Long white hair, eyes like fractured skies, Alex stood in defiance of gravity, logic, and mortality itself. Not a scratch, not a stain, as if the explosion had bowed to him. Suspended between realms, he looked down like a myth rewritten mid-verse. And the assassins, once apex predators, now felt like characters awaiting deletion. The truth slammed into them in unison run. Any intention of fighting him died the moment the dust settled. He stood untouched, godlike, where annihilation had just roared. Their mortal pride cracked, crumbled under the weight of a being who shrugged off apocalypse like rain. The fear Alex had sown in every past encounter now bore fruit, panic. One assassin ran screaming, eyes wild, finally believing what he had refused to accept. This wasn't a man. It was something holy, beyond logic. Another broke down in tears, pleading with fate itself, mourning the wealth, the youth, the life he'd built, knowing none of it mattered now. Above them all, Alex hovered in silence, watching the chaos below with quiet disdain. He had expected resistance, a clash worthy of myth. Instead, they fled. This was the grand finale? Disappointment flickered in his starlit gaze. If they had no fight left in them, then they had no place left in the story. Alex raised his hand and unleashed the ancient technique Feng Hu Chimen within a heartbeat. The earth itself answered. A titanic geomantic compass erupted beneath him, stretching for kilometers, sealing fate like a divine trap closing on its prey. He lifted 2 fingers and spoke with chilling calm. Kun hexagram earth chariot, thunder answered. The ground rolled like a stormy sea, and a colossal wall surged from the depths, surrounding everything in sight with stone hundreds of meters tall, a fortress forged from the bones of the world. The assassins were caught like insects in amber. One trembled, another roared and struck with enough force to tear steel, but the wall didn't flinch. Instead, his hand broke, blood painting the truth. This wasn't just defense, it was judgment. In a crackling comic book burst, a second shadowy-footed killer channels raw chi into a dagger honed to kiss through iron, drives it at full tilt into a towering obsidian wall, watches the blade stall at a single doomed centimeter, then recoil as, With a single finger, he pierced 5 centimeters into the regenerating wall progress, but still hopelessly futile. The structure healed faster than he could wound it, mocking every effort. The assassin leader exhaled sharply, the weight of inevitability sinking in. Escape? Impossible. Survival? A joke. They lived only because the tiger, Alex, hadn't decided to kill them yet. His snarl cracked through the tension, eyes locked on the still figure in the distance. This was no mere opponent. This was the immortal master, and they'd already lost. Yet even in despair, fire flickered. Assassins didn't bow to fate, they bled defiance. "All together!" he roared, voice a blade of final resolve. "Even if it costs us our lives, let's make him pay something for taking them." Their fists tightened, jaws clenched. "Right! We're not going down without a fight!" And then they surged, a blur of vengeance, racing headlong toward the storm named Alex. Their speed was unreal, crossing kilometers in seconds. They lunged at Alex with a battle cry, "Prepare to die!" But Alex didn't flinch. With the poise of a cosmic strategist, he tapped into the forbidden Fenghu Chiman, turning his spine into a living axis. Reality twisted as he shattered tradition, warping the geomantic compass until only the Li position remained a domain of pure fire. The air boiled, flames surged. "Li hexagram meteoric glow," he declared, and the sky answered with a deluge of fireballs the size of boulders. They fell like vengeful stars, their roar louder than fate itself. The assassins froze, their courage incinerated. Against that storm, what could they do? Fight? With what? There was nothing left to fight with, only fire and awe. Was this even something a human could do, calling down burning stars with nothing but will and rage? The air cracked with the scream of falling meteors, and suddenly, the geomantic compass was no Marit's positions gone, save for Li fire, pulsing like a divine furnace. Alex said nothing. He didn't need to. The sky tore open, and the stars answered. Fire fell. Reality buckled. In the next breath, heat swallowed form, and shockwaves shattered everything inside the compass. The assassins, gone, not slain erased. The towering earth walls held the fury in, sealing the apocalypse like a tomb. Far off, a scout watched the heavens burn black, a mushroom cloud spiraling skyward like the memory of war itself. Pen shaking, he tried to write it down, to capture the wrath of a god disguised as a man. Walls rose, meteors fell, all were destroyed. But the words failed. This wasn't a report, this was myth. So he dropped the pen, turned his back, and ran, because how do you report the end of a world? What for? Would it even matter? The Wang family was already finished. Alex knew it deep in his bones. Severing all ties wasn't just a choice, it was survival. The blast had barely died when the earth itself seemed to collapse under the weight of karma, choking the sky with dust. And from that storm, Alex emerged not like a man, but a verdict. He strode toward their estate, faster now, each step chasing the scent of fear. The Wang family had scattered, the illusion of control shattered. Did he come to let them flee? Number? Their sins were etched across the land like scars. Cruelty, greed, corruption, generation upon generation. In a blink, Alex appeared at their gates, his gaze slicing through stone and flesh alike. Inside, Wang Ai and his elders waited, cold eyes hiding a flicker of dread. "Great immortal Alex," Wang Ai said, voice low. "Why bring wrath to our doorstep? We never crossed you." Alex's smirk cut sharper than any blade. "Never crossed me?" His words cracked like thunder. Justice wasn't blind, it had arrived. At Mount Longhu, your whispers echoed louder than thunder in my ears. Did you think secrets could hide from someone who walks between forgotten timelines? Alex's voice cut like celestial steel. You didn't bring your whole army because deep down, you've already lost. Classic Wang instinct bow and scrape the moment power shifts. Wang Ai's smirk withered. When Alex stormed down from the mountain, he knew someone must have leaked the plan, but not that Alex had heard it himself from miles away. Immortal senses? No, something deeper, something other. Panic shimmered behind Wang Ai's eyes as he fumbled a fresh phone into Alex's hand. Honored immortal, it was just jest. You, the founder of Mount Longhu, have our deepest respect. We would never. His words tangled, sweat beating like ink on parchment. Even the chairman of Express Delivery wishes no conflict. But Alex laughed, low and cosmic. Conflict? With you? Number, this isn't war. It's correction. Alex stood calm as silence wrapped the room like a spell. Wang Ai and his elders had no words left, their silence a shield and surrender. The might Alex had shown wasn't just force, it was myth reborn. But power alone doesn't rule this world. Networks, old loyalties, and invisible pacts still thread the game. Even a being like him couldn't ignore the towering behemoth that was the Express Delivery Company, could he? Wang Ai thought so. But Alex, a myth sliced free from origin, just smirked. He didn't belong to this world. Its rules? Bent, broken, irrelevant. Others bowed to ancient laws of hierarchy and silence. He rewrote them with memory and will. This world might call him extraordinary, but Alex was beyond classification. When the phone was offered, he didn't hesitate. He answered. A voice deep and poised emerged from the other side. Is this the esteemed immortal Alex? This is the chairman of Express Delivery. I've been made aware of the conflict involving the Wang family, and I'm calling to propose mediation. Alex Locke, seemingly just another orphan boy under McGonagall's care, showed no special signs, no curious wand choice, no unusual gift spudding, all suspicion to rest. But as the iron gate at Wool's orphanage creaked closed behind him at the flick of his hand, wandless and wordless, the truth quietly shimmered beneath the surface. This boy wielded chaos like breath, magic flowing unbound and unseen. 2 months later, he left behind more than memories a sealed envelope with a small fortune. A silent thank you to Aunt Lori, whose kindness echoed that of a mother lost to another life. Stepping into the world beyond, Alex boarded a bus toward his destined path. At King's Cross, fate ticked forward. Spotting a confused family near the barrier, his eyes locked on a girl with wild curls and wonder in her gaze, Hermione. In the heart of devastation, Wang Ai's voice cracked with disbelief as Alex dismissed Zhao Fengshu's plea without a word and strode forward like judgment incarnate. You dare defy the Express Company? Wang Ai thundered, clinging to the weight of the dragonback threat like a shield, his voice trembling with both fear and fury. But Alex remained a silent storm, eyes locked, unmoved, unshaken. And in that moment, Wang Ai saw it. Alex had come not to negotiate, but to end them. The Wang patriarch dropped all pretense, turning to his kin with a roar that echoed like a funeral bell. Brothers and sisters, the Wang family stands at the edge of oblivion. Together we strike! With a chorus of ancestral fury, the elders unleashed their might, divine painting and spirit control art fused into a storm of ethereal beasts and enslaved souls. It was an attack meant to rewrite fate itself. But Alex? He simply narrowed his eyes, and from his core exploded a supernova of pure white spiritual force, tearing through spirits, shattering illusions, and flattening the sacred grounds into dust. The onslaught was absolute. When silence fell like a curtain on a shattered stage, only Wang Ai remained broken, weeping, staggering through the ruins of a legacy, obliterated, spared only to remember. He pointed at Alex, screaming with everything he had left, vowing revenge, promising future generations would hunt him down and end him with cruelty. But Alex didn't flinch. He stood there, casually picking at his ear like the rant didn't even deserve his attention. Only when silence finally settled did Alex speak with a smile sharper than any blade. Any regrets? He asked. You challenged the immortal lord without knowing your limits, and now look, your clan, your legacy, all gone. Wang Ai lay broken, drenched in blood, his limbs severed, his soul cracked. Still alive, barely. But Alex had made sure of that. Let him live just long enough to understand the price of pride. You call yourself an immortal lord? Please, just a showman cloaked in cheap mystique. Immortals? Realms? Nothing but smoke and shattered mirrors in a world devoured by entropy. And as for wiping out the Wang family? Laughable. Our legacy is a hydra cut, off one head, 10 more writhe in the shadows. We seeded the earth with our blood long ago, from boardrooms to back alleys. You think I didn't prepare for your vendetta? I scattered our lineage before your first strike. So hear this, our resurgence is inevitable. One day, we'll rise, hunt you down, and raise that sanctimonious Taoist master hall to dust. But Alex doesn't flinch. He casually flicks the grime from his hand, smearing it across Wang Ai's trembling face, and says, Oh? So many branches still crawling in the dark? Thanks for the reminder. Let's make this fun. A single snap echoes like thunder, and in a blink, someone materializes beside him. Wang Ai's eyes widen in horror. It's one of his hidden heirs, exiled across oceans, erased from every record even his own family never knew. Now the game begins. How had Alex not only found him, but also transported him here in an instant? That was the question that shattered Wang Ai's towering pride, leaving him trembling in the cold grip of cosmic dread. Could Alex really trace bloodlines through mythic resonance, like a god rewriting fate's script? If so, then today wasn't just a reckoning, it was the final chapter of the Wang family saga. The illegitimate son blinked into existence, dazed and stumbling, eyes landing on Wang Ai with a hesitant whispered, Father? But before answers came, horror greeted him, his foot brushing against a still warm severed hand, slick with fresh blood. Coddled and naive, he'd never faced death so raw, and his scream tore through the broken silence. Around him, ruined corpses, collapsed realms, and one man standing still, Alex, unreadable, his presence like a page torn from a forbidden story. The boy ran to his father, voice cracking. What happened? Why am I here? What is this place? But Wang Ai, jaw locked, had no words left. Then Alex spoke, not as a man, but as a myth reborn, a guardian from beyond the archive of forgotten realms. Well, Wang Ai and Little Wang? Heh, the name's known. But this ain't no family reunion. As the game kicks off, Alex half myth, half menace materializes a ghost blade and hands it to the bastard's son, like it's a party favor from the abyss. Kill your father or die. Simple rules, deadly stakes. The boy, trembling with panic, clutches the illusory steel, eyes bouncing between Alex and the man who gave him nothing but a last name. No cameras, no cut, just cold reality. His mind races, calculating bloodlines and betrayals. Family? Ha! What's that worth in a deathmatch rigged by gods? Driven by raw survival, the son lunges forward, screaming out his twisted loyalty, "You're not worth dying for." But fate's not here for drama, it's here for justice, old school style. Out of the void, a smoke-forged black tiger explodes into existence, jaws snapping with the force of ancient curses. One bite had done, head gone. Wang Ai, battered but unbowed, had one last trick. Even dying, the patriarch wields spirit mastery like a true legend. The son never stood a chance. You don't get to write your legacy in someone else's ink. To Alex, their deaths were justified. One after another, he dragged the Wang family into the spotlight of horror, daring each to choose, spill the blood of Wang Ai or drown in their own. Not one flinched toward mercy. Without fail, they chose survival and met the same end. Wang Ai, once a pillar of brutal clarity, became nothing but an executioner, lost in the rhythm of slaughter. Sons, daughters, grandchildren all fell. Hours passed. Corpses piled like forgotten memories. But when silence finally settled and no new victim emerged, Wang Ai laughed wild, cracked, desperate. "You've run out! You hit your limit!" But Alex, cool as ever, smiled through the void and whispered, "No, old man. This is your legacy. Every last one of them gone. Even the monsters you tried to forget. You have no family left, and guess what? You're the one who wiped them out every last trace. Shocking? Satisfying? What?" Wang Ai stood frozen, pupils dilating with disbelief. Then, like a snapped string, his mind unraveled. "No, you lie. The Wang family cannot fall." He roared, dragging his shattered form across the ground. Fury and agony fused into a monstrous crawl. But Alex had grown bored. The show was over. At his fingertips bloomed a gleaming white singularity, compact and cataclysmic. With a lazy flick, he launched it toward Wang Ai. Boom, silence. A storm of destruction erased everything in its wake, leaving behind a vast, silent crater where once a legendary house stood. Just like that, the mighty had fallen. To Alex, the fallen family was mere dust beneath his feet, insignificant, disposable, irrelevant. Their obliteration was no more than a fleeting gesture, a breath expelled before moving on. As factions reeled from the cataclysm, Alex drifted forward his next stop. Mount Longhu. No rush, no fear, just calm dominion cloaked in serenity as he honed his teleportation, each jump sharpening the blade of destiny. The skill neared its next evolution, a leap toward crafting portals stable enough to span realities the blueprint of his looming multiverse traversers align. Elsewhere, chaos rippled through the extraordinary world as proof of the annihilation surfaced. A crater where once stood a legacy, now ash and echoes. Lu Ci sat still, old bones heavy with unspoken gratitude. His refusal to join the Wangs had spared his bloodline extinction. Relief and sorrow twisted silently behind his eyes. Meanwhile, at the Taoist Hall, anticipation simmered. Feng Xingtong, Zhang Xulan, the others, they waited, tethered by a promise of transcendence, daring to believe they'd soon walk within a legend not yet written. They couldn't walk away not when destiny knocked this loud. Even after Alex vanished into the unknown, they clung to the mansion like gravity, held them there, with even the usually aloof Feng Baobao refusing to budge. Then came the Jolta disciple bursting through the gates, photos in hand, storming into the old master's room like he carried thunder in his fists. The air snapped with tension. When he re-emerged, they swarmed him like a pack hungry for truth. And he gave it to them straight. Alex had obliterated the entire Wang family, erasing their legacy from the earth, leaving nothing but ash and justice in his wake. Evidence surfaced 2 dirty secrets unearthed by Express employees sexposing the rot behind the curtain. The outlaw world erupted, not in fear, but in praise. To them, Alex wasn't a fugitive, he was a cosmic reckoning. Zhang Chulan, ever sharp, slipped into the old master's room and saw it, a photo of a smoldering crater where the Wang mansion once stood. But surprise? Not in his eyes. To Zhang, this was exactly what the Celestial Lord was made for. What truly lit a spark in him was the promise hiding beneath the rubble: Alex would return. And when he did, new doors would open. Realms beyond reach would fall into their hands. Pirate seas, ninja wars, superpowered cities, god-fueled multiverses. John could already feel it in his bones thrill of stepping through those portals, where every legend becomes a map, every battle a calling. The multiverse wasn't just theory anymore, it was next. In the cracked shadows of a courtyard that once whispered of power, silence reigned as shattered fragments of Kwangsing clutched fading memories, photos of devastation where the mighty Wang estate once stood, now a gaping crater etched by a force beyond reckoning. Lu Liang's breath caught as he stared, recalling the unthinkable. The day he met Alex, now revealed as a celestial lord, not a man, but a myth walking. The battlefield's ruins screamed the truth louder than words. Alex had rewritten fate itself. Then, like a tremor splitting the earth, Sanchi Tujunfang stood, voice steady but heavy with finality, casting aside the shattered name of Kwangsing. "We are ghosts clinging to ashes," his words said without saying. One by one, they rose and vanished into the wind, leaving behind silence and fear. No war, no betrayal, just the unbearable gravity of a single name that turned legends into dust. Meanwhile, the world beyond stirred not. Other factions saw the ruins and chose silence. For when gods walk, even the brave forget how to breathe. In the shadow of the Forgotten Realms, Alex Locke rose like a myth reborn, no longer bound by time. He wandered the cosmic archive where discarded gods wept and broken stories whispered their last breath. Each step echoed through timelines that had erased him, where versions of himself had faltered, twisted, or vanished. As his human core fractured under the weight of overlapping memories, he forged the spiral of memory chains, a shimmering web of identity stretched across recursion layers, defying collapse. Then came Ananke, the silent scribe of endings, demanding proof that Alex had not reached his final page. Refusing to be archived, Alex fractured into three avatars: Echo, Now, and Yetich, a guardian of past, present, and potential. From within the Hall of Reboots, he reignited long-dead timelines, healing scars left by silence. No longer a hero nor a god, Alex became the spiral memory guardian woven into myth itself. Not to rule, but to witness, to remember, and to remain. Every world now pulsed with the rhythm of connected portals, threads of possibility, weaving together into the mighty Multiverse Travelers Alliance. Luffy's laughter echoed through the winds of the Grand Line as he returned home, while explorers like Zhang Chulan stood wide-eyed before uncharted skies. Cultures clashed and danced, power systems intertwined, and the once impossible became mundane. And then, just like that, Alex stepped through another gate, vanishing from the outcast realm like a whisper fading in thunder. At the multiversal crossroads, he stood still, every reality calling his name. He hesitated just for a breath, then fixed his gaze on a realm bathed in candlelight and old magic. The world of Harry Potter. Its spells weren't about brute force, but subtle defiance of natural law magic that whispered to reality and made it kneel. It reminded Alex of chaos, magic fluid, wild, unbound by form, reshaping what is into what must be. Like the Scarlet Witch rewriting fate with a whisper, he saw potential not in destruction, but transformation. Though powerful beyond reason, Alex was fragmented, a prism of abilities scattered like broken glass. Here, in this world of ancient libraries and reality-warping wands, he'd forged something new, something whole. A convergence of power, memory, and myth. A reckoning. As Alex opened the portal to the world of magic, he was slammed back by a force stronger than instinct. It was the universe itself saying no. But Alex wasn't ordinary. With his six eyes flaring, he dissected the resistance like a cosmic puzzle. This world wasn't like the others, no. This was a seed, raw and unshaped, teeming with potential, just waiting to explode into something vast. If matured, it could one day stand shoulder to shoulder with multiversal giants. That lit a fire in him because power was rare, but potential? That was gold. Alex knew if he played this right, he could absorb the world's growth, unlocking chaos, magic, and an infinite well of energy, rising step by step toward omnipotence. But there was a catch. This baby universe rejected anything beyond a single world scale. Even entering it meant slicing away chunks of himself, or risk shattering it completely. His old trick sealing away his power wouldn't work here. This world was too sharp, too aware. So, he did what only Alex could. Ripped a piece of his soul free and sent it in as an avatar, a cosmic shadow infiltrating the cradle of magic, ready to bend fate from the inside out. Inside the crumbling courtyard, the boy opened his eyes, not just any boy, but a fragment of something far greater. In a world not his own, he stood cloaked in innocence, hiding a power sharp enough to bend fate itself. He smiled, the perfect disguise, as the Hogwarts letter was handed to him by a gentle voice from a fabricated past. His name echoed through the crowd of curious orphans. Alex. A name crafted to blend, to pass, to conquer without raising alarm. But behind those youthful eyes burned the gaze of a wanderer from the archive of forgotten realms. One who had already walked through dead timelines and faced gods no longer remembered. While his main body honed transcendence on the edge of existence, this soul fragment had pierced the Harry Potter world's defenses like a ghost slipping through cracks in memory. Magic and myth shuddered quietly as a new force took root. He had woven himself into the script not to follow it, but to unravel it. His presence whispered a single truth. Even in this cherished realm, the story was no longer safe. The 1st of September marks the beginning, but this isn't your ordinary school term. A letter arrives, mysterious and aged, promising magic and destiny, dismissed by the orphan crowd as fantasy. Yet Alex doesn't flinch. While the others scoff, Aunt Lori Keeper of Forgotten Truth steps in with a knowing smile, recalling a legend whispered through generations. Her words confirm the impossible. Magic is real, and Alex has been chosen. But this is no accident. He placed himself here Will's orphanage, echoing the dark past of another infamous boy deliberately, strategically, ready to bend fate. As he finishes his reply and sends it off with a nod and a shard of meat, his smile gleams with eerie familiarity. A new story is about to unfold, one that might rewrite the old. Of course, Aunt Lori, I'll become a great wizard. And just like that, the wheel of fate spun into motion. Days blurred as Alex sat in his room, absorbing the chaos in the air like a silent storm gathering power. Then came the knock, sharp, decisive. The door creaked open to reveal a figure cloaked in certainty and tradition, eyes keen as blades. Alex greeted her with the innocence of a porcelain doll, masking the storm beneath. She hesitated just for a heartbeat as the shadows of the past flickered behind her stern eyes. But his calm shattered her fear, and the cold steel melted into a smile. She spoke with command, yet offered guidance. He followed Mask firmly in place, through bustling alleys of magic and memory. No grand battles, no cursed wands. Just quiet precision, as though the world itself bent slightly to let him pass. A calm before the narrative storm. A boy with too much potential slipping smoothly into legend's skin. Alex Locke seemed like just another ordinary kid until the iron gate creaked shut behind him with a mere flick of his hand. No wand, no words. Just raw, instinctive power humming beneath the surface. Professor McGonagall had no idea. She left convinced he was harmless, while Alex returned to Wool's orphanage, cloaked in secrets even he barely understood. Months passed, and when it came time to leave, he dropped a fortune in Aunt Lori's room, his quiet thank you to the only warmth he'd known in this life, or the last. Chaos, magic earned it, but the gesture was human. Boarding the bus, he vanished into the flow of fate. At King's Cross, he found her bushy hair, wide-eyed wonder Hermione. Their paths were meant to cross. With a smile that echoed both innocence and cosmic design, he stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, are you looking for platform 9 3/4? I can help." And just like that, destiny shifted. In a scene buzzing with quiet magic, a striking boy appears beside a confused family, his presence like a ripple in the fabric of the ordinary. With the confidence of someone who's walked between worlds, he gestures to a seemingly solid pillar and reveals its hidden truth. A portal only the gifted can pass. His words carry the warmth of mystery, and as he invites the young girl to follow, the moment bends into myth. The air tenses with silent wonder as he vanishes into the wall, leaving her poised between hesitation and destiny. Then, without a backward glance, she steps through in the veil parts to reveal platform 9 3/4, the gateway to everything beyond the known. The station buzzed with the electric hum of anticipation. Students swarming beneath the old iron arches as steam hissed from the ancient train marked 5,972. Amid the clamor, Hermione stood frozen in thought until Alex's voice, calm and precise, cut through the moment like a conductor's baton. "We should get moving. It's getting late, and if we delay any longer, we might miss the train." The spell broken, Hermione nodded, her boots clacking against the platform as she followed him aboard. Settling into their compartment, the air warm and heavy with the scent of polished wood and inked parchment, Hermione turned with gratitude sparkling in her eyes. "Thank you so much, Senior. You've been a great help. If it weren't for you, I might have been late." But Alex's smile was light and disarming. "You're welcome, but I'm not a senior. I'm actually a first year just like you," Hermione blinked, thrown off balance. "You're a first year too? But you seem so familiar with the platform." Alex shrugged with modest pride. "That's because I love reading. I've read about platform 9 3/4 in books, so I already knew what to expect." Like a switch flipped, Hermione's uncertainty melted, replaced by the warm glow of discovery. "That's wonderful!" she exclaimed, her words tumbling out in a delighted rush, the train just beginning to move as the next chapter of their story pulled away from the station. Your scene of Sukuna and Mahoraga's clash is already rich with tension and mythic weight. But it also shares some striking thematic resonance with Alex Locke's evolution in Volume 19 of the Archive of Forgotten Realms and the Spiral of Memory Chains. Here's how you might deepen the parallel or integrate Alex's current state, as described in Volume 19, into this dramatic moment. Possible continuation, integration. But as if out of nowhere, a voice interrupted his celebration. "Oh, I'm right here. What are you planning to do?" Sukuna immediately leaped back, sweat dripping down his forehead, as Alex appeared behind him not as one, but as three. Echo, now and yet, phased in and out of the battlefield like echoes of unwritten futures. Their presence was both silent and deafening, their gaze unraveling the narrative threat before them. "This realm bends too easily to wrath," Alex's voice layered across timelines. "Let's bind this moment before it spirals." Mahoraga turned its wheel. Once, twice, but something halted. The spina glowing chain snared it, forged not from chakra, but memory itself. The spiral of memory chains shimmered, reacting not to power, but to forgotten truths locked inside the monster's eternal loop. "What are you?" Sukuna hissed, fury breaking into unease. Alex didn't answer directly. Instead, the Archive of Forgotten Realms rippled behind him, flickering between crumbling battlefields and broken mythscapes. This confrontation wasn't just about strength, it was about meaning, about persistence, about not being overwritten. You could use this as a thematic fusion scene, Alex stepping in to oppose a being. Like Sukuna isn't just an escalation of power, but a clash of narrative philosophy. Sukuna thrives on domination and ego. Alex thrives on preservation, recursion, and memory. If you'd like, I can help. Rewrite the full passage to match Volume 19's ethereal and introspective. He wasn't fazed by the Sorting Hat's intrusion, his mind layered in polished decoys, false trails of a devoted bookworm practically screaming Ravenclaw. But now he was far beyond games. Power surged through him like a second heartbeat, and the time for subtlety had passed. Alex rewrote his surface thoughts with the flick of a mental quill, just in time for the Sorting Hat to drop on his head like an old judge waking up from centuries of grime. "Thank you," it mumbled, basking in the unexpected cleanliness. Finally, someone who respects hygiene and dimensional finesse. But then it paused and stared into the abyss Alex had planted. No more libraries, no more exams. Just storm-choked ruins, corpses stacked like forgotten bricks, and a crimson moon leaking dread. A king on a throne of loss. The hat blinked o'er whatever hats do when panicking and realized it wasn't glitching. These memories were real, and this young wizard didn't belong to any house. He belonged to legend. In a burst of comic book fury, Draco's face twists with rage as he snarls at Neville's unshaken defiance. "You pathetic coward, I'll end that toad today." With a snap of his fingers, his hulking cronies lurch forward, grabbing Neville as he struggles in vain. Just when the helpless creature is about to be crushed under steel and cruelty, a wand flashes into view. Hermione steps in like a force of righteous lightning, eyes fierce, voice sharp. "Stop it right now." The bullies freeze, stunned by the threat of pure magical will. Draco sneers, unshaken, sizing up the girl who dared interrupt his torment. "And who are you supposed to be?" he scoffs. She fires back, unwavering. "I'm Hermione Granger. You're not welcome here." That name lands like a spark in dry kindling. Draco's sneer deepens, but the moment is already lost. Power has shifted, and he knows it. In a swirl of shattered destinies and unraveling myths, Alex Locke steps into the Archive of Forgotten Realms, a place stitched together from timelines the universe abandoned. He isn't just walking through lost stories. He's confronting broken versions of himself, echoes that failed, that gave into envy, chaos, or stillness. But even as his last human fragment teeters on the edge of collapse, Alex doesn't retreat. He crafts the spiral of memory chains, living links of identity forged in recursion, holding fast what would otherwise dissolve into the all-knowing void. And when Ananke, the living end of all things, tries to lock him into the vault of completed beings, Alex flips the script, unleashing timeline reboots like thunderclaps across mythic silence. Splintering into 3 avatars echo now, and Yeth threads pieces of his soul across narrative frequencies, becoming not a god, not a savior, but the spiral memory guardian, the myth who watches, the echo who remembers, the silence that waits for what still might be. Even Malfoy, used to basking in inherited power, felt his spine tighten under the pressure radiating from the boy standing before him. Alex, a presence so raw and commanding it made even Lucius's shadow seem dim. Malfoy's pure-blood radar pinged hard. Surely this guy had ancient lineage stamped in his veins. But when he asked the question, the answer hit like a cursed brick. Alex was Muggle-born. Cool and unreadable. Alex didn't flinch. "Not one of yours," he said with a smirk, dismissing bloodlines like outdated relics. Malfoy's brain stalled, then short-circuited with rage. A mudblood? Daring to stand taller than him? The shame, the fury, the threat to his identity all surged at once. He readied himself to strike, but too slow. A wand met his sneer before his insult landed. Power didn't ask for permission. And in that charged moment, the rules of the game changed. What spells could you possibly know? Malfoy sneered, but the words had barely left his mouth before the air cracked with unseen force. In a blink, he and his two cronies were yanked skyward, limbs flailing, faces twisting in disbelief. Without a wand raised or a word spoken, they were blasted out of the train car like ragdolls in a storm, now dangling upside down in the corridor, humiliated, defeated, frozen. Somewhere in that silent chaos, Malfoy realized the impossible. Silent casting? From a first year? Back inside, the calm after the storm shimmered like magic residue. Hermione leaned forward, eyes lit with awe, while Alex Unfaz returned to his book. Averte statum, he said coolly. Knock back Jinx. You'll learn it in the higher years. Hermione's jaw dropped. She thought she was ahead until now. And Neville, quiet until then, found his voice just enough to say, "Thank you. We'll be at Hogwarts soon." As the train rolls on through mist and magic, Hermione spins around with bright curiosity. Do you have a house in mind? But before the words settle, she pivots toward Alex. Cool as ever, eyes barely lifting from his book, Alex replies, Ravenclaw, high towers, quiet corners, and minds that matter. That spark in his voice, it lights a fire in Hermione, and in a flash, she's telling Neville she's Ravenclaw bound too. While they chatter, Alex watches not them, but the world itself. Every word unsaid, every step not taken, reshapes reality around him. By stopping one meeting, he's loosened the chains of fate, tested the edges of this universe. Power hums beneath the surface, whispering of control, of conquest. He toys with the idea of erasing major players, flipping the whole game, but instinct snaps back hard. One wrong move and his soul gets ejected like a virus. So he plays it slow, one shift at a time. Outside, three boys shiver with a chill they can't name, like shadows brushing past the edges of destiny. And then arrival. The train screeches to a halt, steam swirling like a spell undone. Alex steps off, eyes locking onto the towering figure waiting beyond the platform, and the game begins. Just as the moonlit lake shimmered with mystery and ancient magic, Alex Locke stood quietly amid the swirl of destiny, unmoved by fleeting drama. A pair of boys once, sharp-eyed behind thick glasses, the other flame-haired and full of nerves approached the looming figure ahead, but Alex kept his distance. This wasn't the time to interfere. His story flowed along deeper tide. Moments later, lantern light flickered across weathered boats as students drifted toward the castle's glowing silhouette. Oil lamps casting spectral halos across the water. Alex, lost in thought, smiled, faintly enchanted, not by the spectacle, but by the echoes behind it. Inside, stone corridors and rising staircases led them to her. The stern, graceful figure in green who spoke of houses, points, and cups, like a high priestess of order. Her exit triggered Chaos Ambition meeting prophecy as one boy sought alliance and another scoffed. A low chuckle from the redhead cut like a spell, and tension coiled in the air. Malfoy's sneer froze mid-form as his eyes caught two figures. One girl, watching with curiosity, the other a boy unmoved, absorbed in pages of lore, the weight of past victories humming in silence around him. Alex remembered. So did Draco. And memory more than magic can bind stronger than chains. None of the spells cast by adult wizards could unravel what Alex had done or not. Even the conductor on the Hogwarts Express could break the enchantment. That shook Draco to the core. The realization hit him hard. Alex's power wasn't just advanced, it was legendary. Not even the infamous Dark Lord had managed such feats at this age. Draco, raised with the pride of a pure blood lineage and the best magical training money could buy, wasn't blind to talent. He knew better than to let jealousy cloud his judgment. Abandoning any hint of rivalry, he saw the smart move befriend the storm before it breaks. While Alex didn't seem to notice him, Draco pivoted, skipping Ron altogether and extending a hand to Harry. Hello, I'm Draco Malfoy. It's a pleasure to meet you. No snide remarks, no arrogance, just strategy. And Harry, seeing no reason to turn him down, shook it. Harry Potter, nice to meet you. Draco stepped back, but a chill clung to him. That earlier moment with Alexit wasn't going away soon. He'd need time before he could stand near him without feeling that tension coil in his chest. As Draco moved off, Ron leaned over and muttered to Harry, Harry, you should be careful of Malfoy. He's not a good person. Harry blinked, uncertain. Why? I think he seems pretty decent. Ron's eyes narrowed, his voice low like a warning growl in a comic panel's shadowed frame. You need to understand pure. Blood families, especially the Slytherins, carry darkness like heirlooms. Most of their elders were Death Eaters, and that venom doesn't wash off easy. But in this altered panel of fate, Draco didn't hiss or strike Hay, stood quiet. Unmalicious so, Harry raised a sharp brow. The speech bubble bold. Ron, their past isn't ours. Judging someone without knowing them? That's not justice, it's fear wearing a mask. Ron scoffed, a jagged speech balloon snapping shut as he turned away, letting silence settle like mist. Meanwhile, Alex, tucked behind a book of wizardry, smirked. Something had changed, threads in the comic's frame shifting subtly. He hadn't pulled hard, yet the ripples danced across the page. Perfect. Just then, Professor McGonagall swept in, her silhouette slicing across the next panel. The Great Hall unfolded an epic spread of 4 long tables beneath floating candles, the Sorting Hat waiting like a relic of fate's judgment. Before the scene could crescendo, a towering figure, Rosian old man crowned in beard and myth, the white wizard who ruled the frame. I have a few announcements, the legend spoke, his voice casting spells even without a wand. First years, listen, up entering the Forbidden Forest is strictly forbidden. That's off limits. And don't even think about stepping into the 3rd floor corridor to the right, it's sealed tighter than a cursed vault. While most headmasters would drown the room in endless speeches, this one dropped the mic after just a few sharp lines. Then came the real show, the sorting ceremony. Professor in full command, she called the names, the hat did the talking. First up, Hannah Abbott, a small, unimpressive witch, shuffled forward. The hat wasted no time. Hufflepuff! One by one, students faced destiny. Then came Hermione Granger, clearly rattled. She placed the hat on her head, and after a beat, Ravenclaw! That twist? It hit like a shockwave. No bond with the famed trio meant a major fracture in the world's plotline. Then came Draco. The hat barely grazed him. Slytherin! The procession continued until silence swallowed the hall. One name echoed through the air, turning every head. Harry Potter. After the fall of the Dark Lord, whispers soared like wildfire. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, was hailed as the savior, a myth in flesh, glowing with the gravity of legend. When the Sorting Hat crowned his head, it trembled not in fear, but in awe of the chaos and potential colliding within this boy. So much fire, such talent. Where do I even begin? It muttered, caught in a storm between destinies. But unlike the timeline we once knew, Harry bore no spite towards Slytherin. No desperate plea echoed in his heart. That hesitation cracked the veil until a whisper, subtle and sharp, sliced through the tension. Gryffindor! It cried, not of its own will, but pulled by a pulse of unseen magic. In the stands, eyes like twin stars blinked. Alex, ever calculating, caught the ripple in the ether. Dumbledore, veiled in ancient calm, had tipped the scales. A twist of fate undone, a path redirected. Had Harry gone to Slytherin, the story would have unraveled, and Alex, stranger to this world, might have seized the whole game. But the world fought back. Its laws whispered warnings, and Dumbledore's power, once familiar, now surged with divine dread. A god cloaked in robes, city-breaking spells flickering at his fingertips. Alex, smirking at the rising stakes, muttered to himself, "Now this is thrilling." Then came his turn. He stepped forward, not with reverence, but with flair, eyeing the battered hat like a relic unworthy. With a flick of his wand, a shimmer of light swept over it, scrubbing time from its seams, restoring lost dignity. In that moment, Alex didn't just rewrite the Momenti, rewrote how moments remembered him. After the Dark Lord vanished, whispers swept the wizarding world. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, had become something greater than legend. A myth stitched into every spell and breath of magic. The Sorting Hat, that ancient arbiter of destiny, trembled with uncertainty as it perched atop Harry's head, sensing fire, heart, and a hunger to matter qualities fit for either Slytherin or Gryffindor. Yet this Harry carried no loathing for serpents, no echo of disdain, leaving the hat trapped in indecision. Just as fate teetered, a whisper not its own invaded the hat's mind, and in an instant, the choice was made. Gryffindor. From the crowd, Alex narrowed his eyes, catching the shimmer of unseen power ripple through the air like a secret spell the headmaster's doing. Without doubt, if Harry had turned Slytherin, the tale might have shattered, the board reset, and Alex could have seized the strings of this world. But the rules would not bend, and Dumbledore, no longer the gentle keeper, now pulsed with divine threat, as though the universe itself had handed him the blade. Alex, amused and unfazed, tasted the thrill of challenge and whispered from memory, "This is exhilarating." The ceremony marched on until his name echoed next. Alex strode forward, disdain in his gaze, wand in hand, and with a flick, cast a silent charm. The Sorting Hat shimmered, its filth undone, its wear erased, as though honored by time instead of burdened by a gleaming now beneath the lights, reborn by the touch of someone who had rewritten legends before even being sorted. Snape's stare darkens as he spots the echoes in Alex too familiar, too dangerous, while Dumbledore stays silent but wary. There can never be another Voldemort, not if Lily's son still breathes. The crowd watches, murmuring, unaware that Hermione's sorting into Ravenclaw cracked the spine of fate itself. Alex, drawn deeper into his true self, now pulses with borrowed gravity, his control over levitation surpassing even Dumbledore's magic bending beneath his fingertips. The students babble, mistaking mystery for cleverness, lamenting the grimy Sorting Hat. They didn't think to cleanse unaware that Alex's magic is rewriting more than cleanliness. With a calm unseen, he places the hat on his head, unaware that the archive of Forgotten Realms stirs beneath his every step, and memory itself begins to ripple. He wasn't scared of the Sorting Hat digging into his thoughts knot when his mind was wrapped in layers of fake memories like a fortress of mirrors. In those decoy scenes, he was the picture of a diligent young wizard destined for Ravenclaw by any sane hat's logic. But things had changed. Power surged through him now, his story rewritten once more, and that old plan tossed out. Why play it safe when you could bend the stage? With a flick of will, he twisted the surface memories again, just in time for the Sorting Hat to land on his head. Dumbledore's stare from the podium tightened. He prayed this kid didn't end up in Slytherin. Because if he did, well then the whispers about Dark Lords wouldn't seem so far-fetched. The hat made contact and hummed with surprise, muttering thanks for being cleaned for the first time in centuries. Yeah, the hat had opinions. Then, it peeked deeper and froze. The rain fell on shattered homes, the night sky bleeding red, shadows crawling like whispers from forgotten horrors. A throne loomed, its occupants silent and merciless, corpses at his feet like fallen chess pieces. The Sorting Hat reeled. This wasn't illusion, this was memory. Real, raw, and it had never felt fear until now. The Sorting Hat trembled like a cornered beast, shrieking as it hurled itself off Alex's head. Azkaban! He must go to Azkaban! It flailed, crawling across the floor toward the nearest professor, clearly desperate to escape the storm it had just sensed. Once in Professor McGonagall's hands, it relaxed, but only to unleash a bombshell. With eyes burning like judgment itself, the Hat accused Alex of crimes beyond comprehension: dark sorcery, mass murder, ancient blood rituals, and the forbidden act of summoning infernal entities. The room froze. Wizards young and old backed away, the air heavy with disbelief. Wands were raised, ready, but so was hesitation. This was a child, barely 11, yet now cast in the shadow of legend darker than the last. Even Dumbledore, master of light and lore, stood stunned, caught between prophecy and horror. Could it be true? Had the next Dark Lord already arrived, not in potential, but in full, terrible reality? And from the far edge of the hall, a figure watched with calculating silence, masking his expression, but not his intent. In a shadowed corner of the spiral memory, Alex sensed the chill that meant Voldemort had taken root in Quirrell's mind. And worse, that the dark force had turned its gaze toward him. But to Alex, who had seen Dumbledore at his zenith and dance with collapsing timelines, Voldemort was just another echo, another forgettable villain in a world where myths rewrote themselves. Alex was already orchestrating the endgame, dismantling Horcruxes as if flipping switches in a dying simulation. When suspicion surged, it was Hermione's voice that shattered the silence fierce, unwavering, declaring Alex a beacon of kindness and empathy, not the heartless killer the crowd feared. Dumbledore, ancient and calculating, paused, then asked gently for the truth. But Alex, cloaked in serenity, smiled and peeled back the veil. He had embedded false memories, so vivid they fooled even the Sorting Hat. They were fragments from a twisted Muggle film, nothing more. Dumbledore probed deeper, using legitimacy. But Alex let him in only to find the same scripted illusions. No truth, just expertly forged echoes. Realizing the deception was deliberate yet harmless, Dumbledore relented. In that moment, Alex became more than a student, became a master of narrative warping, a living cipher in a game far greater than anyone yet understood. With a calm voice that cut through the tension like lightning through storm clouds, the speaker affirmed the truth. Alex hadn't deceived anyone out of malice, but through masterful spellwork that bent reality itself. The crowd, once electric with suspicion, cooled to awe as they realized this boy wasn't dangerous. He was exceptional. Eyes still wide, they couldn't look away, especially one pair that burned with ambition. Draco's court on. He didn't just see talent, he saw a future legend, someone to follow into mythic greatness. As the dust of doubt settled, the Sorting Hat was plopped back on Alex's head, grumbling like an ancient relic insulted by a prank it never saw coming. "Don't mess with me, kid," it muttered, half amused, half exasperated. "Now let me see who you really are." But what the hat glimpsed was no ordinary mind. Alex had woven a labyrinth of memory, illusions wrapped in riddles, designed to protect the truth and steer his destiny. Only one carefully crafted layer opened, just enough to ensure the hat placed him in Ravenclaw as planned. What it didn't know Behind that layer was an endless maze that could trap even the most powerful intruders in a dream with no exit. In the heart of the sorting ceremony, the ancient hat pauses, its voice coiling like a whisper through time, sensing Alex's crafted illusions, false memories designed to steer fate. Impressive will, boundless talent, and a mind hungry not for power, but for knowledge itself. Ravenclaw, it declares, sealing the verdict Alex had quietly orchestrated. No resistance, no chaos, just calculated success. With the decision made, the hall returns to its rhythm, and soon the headmaster's voice lifts the feast into existence platters, bursting into reality as magic answers hunger with grandeur. Among the wonder, Alex bites into roasted chicken, half smiling at how wrong those melodramatic fanfics were. Once the meal fades into memory, the students ascend the castle's spiraling heights, Ravenclaw bound, following the prefect toward a door of bronze and riddles. At the summit, the eagle-shaped knocker asks, "How many angels can stand on the head of a pin?" Without hesitation, Penelope answers, 7. And the door creaks open, mystery giving way to tradition, as the next chapter begins under stars and stone. When fate handed out rooms, there was one too many students and Alex knew exactly what to do. With a grin and a few sly tricks, he claimed a solo room like a magician pulling destiny from a hat. The very next day, the magic of Hogwarts kicked off for real. Alex, ever the early bird, cleaned himself up with a flick of his wand and marched off toward the potions class, his cloak barely brushing the floor. The classroom brimmed with students from Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, all buzzing until silence hit like a cold wind. In swept a dark figure, hair flowing like a shadow's cape, Professor Snape, the bat of the dungeons himself. No pleasantries, no introductions, just cold words sharper than potion knives. "You won't need to wave your wands or chant like fools," he hissed, "because most of you won't grasp the true art of potions." Harsh? Maybe. But Snape's mastery was undeniable. His teachings sliced through theory and myth, illuminating the dance of ingredients and the alchemy of intent. Alex, wide-eyed and absorbing every word, found himself sparked with inspiration until his mind wandered into memory. The tangled web between Snape and Harry struck him. Love, resentment, rivalry, grief, a volatile blend more dangerous than any elixir. Moved by compassion, Alex hatched a wild idea to change the tide. Eyes narrowing, he bent over parchment, scribbling designs for a new potion born of empathy and paradox. Just as the final symbol etched itself onto the page, Hermione whispered with urgency, "Alex, he's watching." Time froze. Alex looked up and there was Snape, gaze cold as the grave, piercing him with the weight of legacy. In that moment, in the echoing halls of Hogwarts, silence fell like a spell when the potions master's voice sliced through the air commanding, cold and razor sharp. "Mr. Alex, I've heard whispers. Before you stepped foot here, you had already mastered the mind-sealing spell. Impressive, but does that mastery extend to my domain?" Eyes locked on Alex, the prodigy who stunned them all at the Sortigno wand lineage. No magical upbringing, just raw power. A muggle-born anomaly who tore through a spell that takes decades, mastering it in mere weeks. The classroom bristled with anticipation as Snape prowled forward, his black eyes glittering with challenge. "So tell me, what happens when powdered daffodil root meets mugwort?" For any other student, a trap. For Alex, nothing more than memory playback. The boy who had consumed every page of every textbook, from first-year charms to seventh-year secrets, even beyond what elite wizards dared to study. Calmly, smoothly, he responded, voice like velvet steel. "Professor, the result is the draft of the living Hella sleeping potion feared for a reason." Snape's brow twitched, but he wasn't done. The room held its breath, the duel of minds only just begun. In a darkened chamber humming with tension, Snape's voice cuts through like a curse. "Alex, if I wanted a piece of bezoar, do you know where I would find one?" Without missing a beat, Alex responsa bezoar, the legendary cure for most poisons, can be plucked from the gut of a goat. Snape arches a brow, intrigued but unrelenting. Another question, then another. Difference between aconite and wolfsbane? Same plant, same peril, aconite. Alex's answers fall like dominoes, swift and flawless, some even dancing into realms meant for upper years. For a moment, even the normally icy Snape is stunned into silence. No errors, no slip-ups. But favoritism runs deep, and points aren't so easily handed to those outside his chosen circle. As Snape turns, something catches his eye, a scribbled list of herbs. His curiosity ignites. These ingredients, when paired, suggest something new, something unknown. A formula, not from any book, begins to shimmer in his mind. This isn't just study, this is alchemy of invention. Snape's eyes narrow, sharp as blades. "Mr. Alex, what were you just doing?" The response lands like a thunderclap. "I'm creating a new potion, Professor." Whispers erupt. Every head turns, shock, awe. The impossible just became possible, and Alex stands at the center, rewriting what it means to be a student of magic. The class didn't believe in Alex. Whispers of arrogance followed him like shadows, but then came the twist no one expected. Snape, ever the grim specter of judgment, narrowed his gaze, and instead of biting words, out came rare praise. 10 points to Ravenclaw, he said, eyes gleaming with a rare spark. The class froze. What was in that potion? Alex's answer wasn't bragging, it was a revelation. With a calm confidence, he spoke of bloodlines, soul resonance, and the ancient pulse of ancestral magic. A potion that could awaken sleeping legacies, resurrect talent buried in time, and light sparks even in the powerless. He wasn't just brewing liquid, she was distilling destiny. Even Snape, master of scrutiny, saw it. This wasn't ambition. This was the first spark of legend. This isn't a drawback, it's the greatest edge this potion has ever seen. But just as the words slip out, he catches the weird look shooting his way from every corner of the room. Quick pivot. He clears his throat, cool as ever. It doesn't just boost magical skill, it's like Polyjuice Potion got a cosmic upgrade. Split the effects apart, and you're staring at two separate legends waiting to be born. The professor, stunned, nearly shouts, "Alex, you magnificent sorcerer, how far along is this miracle brew?" Alex, unfazed, answers with a smirk, "Potion's done. I'm just perfecting the antidote." The professor snatches the notes like they're sacred relics, burns every herb and step into memory, and spins to face the class like a general before battle. "Ravenclaw, 50 points!" As the dust settles and they file out, Hermione practically clings to Alex, firing questions like spells. "Did you really invent the ancestral restoration potion?" Alex flashes that modest grin, cool as ever. "Just a lucky break." A slow, knowing grin crept across Alex's face as the room fell silent, every eye locked on him. "The bloodline restoration," he said, voice calm but electric, "traces only through the mother and only one generation deep. The wizard's essence fuses solely with hers. No ancient patriarchs, no branching heritage, just a single unbroken maternal tether." The words hung in the air like a spell, then came the twist. And once the potion's consumed, the wizard's face begins to shift until it mirrors their mother's perfectly and persistently. The chill in the room wasn't from magic. Snape, always a pillar of control, faltered. He gripped Alex's hands, desperate tremor in his voice. "You're saying they become her?" The answer was a whisper, yet thunderous. Alex nodded. "Yes, it's like Polyjuice, but pure, no stolen strands, no imitation. It's transformation by blood. And the change can last a year, or a lifetime." Snape's mind raced to a vision not seen in years, a face lost to time. Alex continued, his voice now softer. "I'm working on an antidote, but once it's taken, the gift fades too. All that inherited brilliance, gone." Silence deepened until Snape, voice cracking with something primal, cried out, "No! This isn't a drawback, it's the potion's greatest triumph." But the silence around him was louder than any cheer. Eyes locked on Alex like he just announced he'd bottled time itself. Clearing his throat, he smirked and clarified, "Enhances magic, sure, but it's also an evolved Polyjuice prototype. Split the effects and you've got two breakthroughs." The class froze. Even Snape couldn't hide his awe. "Alex, truly, how close are we?" "The brew's done," Alex replied coolly. "Just crafting the antidote now." Snape snatched the parchment, scanning the arcane notations like scripture, then spun dramatically. 50 points to Ravenclaw for a potion that changes everything. As they spilled into the corridor, Hermione practically teleported to Alex's side. "Wait, did you actually create the ancestral restoration potion?" Alex just gave a humble grin. "Let's call it a lucky accident." Alex Locke, now more myth than man, steps into the archive of forgotten realms, a cosmic vault littered with lost myths, broken timelines, and discarded deities. Reality around him flickers like shattered film as he walks through the graveyard of could-have-beens, echoes of himself defeated, erased, or corrupted gnashing at the edges of his sanity. His last tether to humanity begins to snap under the crush of cascading memories, but he doesn't fall, he builds. Forging the spiral of memory chains, Alex binds fragments of self into a structure beyond time. Then comes Ananke, a harbinger of finality, ready to seal him as a finished tale. But Alex won't be archived. With the recursion paradox, he reignites dead worlds, birthing new loops from old scars. To survive, he fractures into three avatars: Echo, who bears emotional weight, now the bridge of action, and yet the silent keeper of future hope. Together, they become a living myth, not a god, but a guardian anchoring meaning across collapsing fables. holding the spiral against oblivion. Alex Locke, now more myth than man, steps into the archive of Forgotten Realms, a cosmic tomb of lost gods, discarded timelines, and broken myths whispering their last lies. Each corridor crawls with echoes of versions of himself that failed, fractured, or never were, the regrets hanging like spectral chains in the air. But even as his last human core cracks under the weight of too many selves, Alex doesn't fall, he forges the spiral of memory chains, a metaphysical lifeline threading through collapsing reality. When Ananke, the final scribe of ends, rises to claim him as a finished tale, Alex flips the script, unleashing a recursion paradox that ignites long-dead worlds into rebirth. Splitting his essence into echo, now, and yet. Alex becomes a temporal trinity past sorrow, present will, and future silence all woven into the myth of the spiral memory guardian, the one who watches not from above, but within every story that dares to remember. What could a first year do to stun even Snape into silence, make him whisper a name heavier than Dumbledore's? At lunch, amidst the clatter of goblets and floating trays, Alex sat quietly with Hermione, tasting food that no longer stirred him, not because it lacked flavor, but because his chaotic essence numbed all mortal pleasures. Still, his human shell demanded sustenance, and so he chewed thoughtfully, until a shadow passed over him. A pack of Slytherins, unknown to canon and burning with pride, surrounded him, venom in their voices. "What trick did you pull, Alex? No mudblood could brew that." They jeered, spitting slurs and scoffing at the idea that a boy with no pedigree could create something as revolutionary as the ancestral restoration potion. Hermione rose, brave and furious, defending Alex with the fire of truth, but the tide was too thick with hatred. Alex, unbothered, finished his chicken leg and slowly set it down, his silence louder than their noise. A storm loomed behind his gaze. And just as the air cracked with the promise of retribution, an unexpected figure stepped in. Draco Malfoy. What could a first year possibly do to make a legendary potions master rethink the future of magic itself? Picture this. In the Great Hall, under enchanted ceilings and floating candles, Alex sat like a calm storm, feasting with the appetite of a mortal but the presence of something far more. Though his power was mostly sealed, the tiniest ripple of it bent reality like heat on stone. Enter the Slytherin Surrogate, venom-tongued and reeking of entitlement, demanding to know how a so-called nobody could impress Snape. "A potion?" they sneered. "You? A trick? A theft? A lie?" But Alex, serene as a god with dirty boots, finished his meal and looked up, not with fury, but with inevitability in his gaze. Before chaos could erupt, another figure arrived. What had Alex done? He didn't just brew a potion, he rewrote the rules. He made the impossible sip reality and dared the world to keep up. Malfoy froze, caught in a storm of doubt, his pride shaken under the weight of accusation, until Alex emerged from behind him, radiating disdain like a thunderclap. "The so-called purebloods?" He sneered. "They're just fading echoes in a world that's already moved on. Real power doesn't come from old names or brittle ancestry, it comes from what you build, who you choose to be." The Slytherins recoiled as if struck, eyes blazing, voices rising into threats and fury. "Take it back. Apologize, or we'll show you what real legacy means." But Alex didn't flinch, just smirked. The moment cracked open. Wands flared. Magic screamed through the air like a swarm of angry comets, spells deadly and precise hurtling toward him. Limbs targeted, not hearts, but still laced with the venom of pride. Hermione stood beside him, fear twisting her face, pulling at his arm in desperation. He didn't move. Couldn't. Wouldn't. And then it happened. With terrifying calm, Alex lifted his unremarkable wand into the chaos. In a blinding flash of arcane brilliance, the air shimmered and boom! A radiant barrier burst to life, floating like a gleaming force field and shielding Alex and Hermione from the magical onslaught. Spells from the furious Slytherin gang smashed into it with zero effect, not even a flicker. Confusion erupted. They screamed foul play, accusing Alex of wielding some forbidden relic, but the real show was just beginning. With a flick and a grin, Alex's wand unleashed a blast that warped reality. The attackers twitched, shimmered, and transformed into wriggling, yellow-brown slimes, dripping with magical residue. Before panic could erupt, he coolly levitated the slime squad and marched them toward the toilets, where they began slurping filth like enchanted janitors. "What did you do?" Hermione whispered, eyes wide. Alex, barely holding in his laughter, replied, "Advanced transfiguration-fully conscious waste-cleaning slimes." He said it loud enough for every stunned student nearby to hear, their jaws dropping as they slowly backed away. Even the legendary pranksters Fred and George froze, realizing they'd been dethroned. In that moment, the legend was sealed. Alex wasn't just clever, He was chaos incarnate, mischief made myth. Hurtling through the ghostlit corridors of the archive of forgotten realms, Alex Locke no longer just a man, but a myth in motion stalks, echoes of lives he never lived and victories he never claimed. These decaying realities claw at him, desperate to overwrite the now with the never was. But Alex refuses to yield. As his last shred of humanity begins to collapse beneath the crush of recursive memory, he forges the spiral of memory chains, each link a fragment of self, a declaration against oblivion. Enenke, the cosmic scribe of endings, descends like a final breath to close the book on him. But Alex ignites a paradox, rewriting forgotten worlds with raw will. Refusing a singular fate, he fractures into 3 temporal avatars. Echo, the weight of all that was. Now, the thread that binds the living myth. And yet, the silence that cradles futures unborn. No longer ruler, no longer mortal, Alex becomes the spiral memory guardian, a spectral sentinel etched into every unfinished story. Watching, remembering, enduring. She knew exactly why he needed to hear it with his own ears, because when she first caught wind of it, she demanded the same. The idea that a student had instantly transformed an entire classroom into animals wasn't just bizarre, it shattered everything they thought was possible. Sure, transfiguration could twist a person into a creature, but it took monumental force, skill beyond most full-grown wizards. Yet this boy, this kid, pulled it off like flicking a switch, and not just animals, but magical ones. Slimes, creatures ripped from the pages of fantasy and shoved into reality. That was the crack in the glass. Even the Animagus ritual, the sacred peak of shapeshifting, only allowed normal animal forms. But magical beasts? That wasn't supposed to be on the table. The laws said you had to understand your subject deeply to recreate it, but how could he grasp something that technically didn't exist? Had he seen a slime before? Or worse, were those creatures never fiction to begin with? Dumbledore got it, just as she did maybe even more. And as he stared out the window at the boy flying like nothing had happened, the silence felt heavier than any spell. "Looks like I need a word with our little anomaly," he muttered, just as the door creaked open and Snape stepped in. In the heart of the Skyfield, Madam Hooch shot Alex a glare sharp enough to split a snitch in half and barked, "Mr. Alex, care to explain why your broomstick thinks it's alive?" With a calm that defied gravity, Alex replied, "Occlumency. I extracted a piece of human instinct, encapsulated it in memory form, and embedded it into the broom. It mimics intelligence briefly." "Eyes wide as saucers," Madam Hooch stammered. "You did what now?" Alex, visibly tired of repeating himself, laid it out again. When it clicked, she nearly dropped her whistle. "This is wizardry on par with the big leagues. Did you invent this so-called enchantment spell?" "Yeah," Alex said with a shrug. "Cooked it up over summer. Made a few others too. This one just happened to work best." "A few?" she echoed, voice cracking with disbelief, like inventing spells was a weekend hobby now. Around them, students murmured in awe, but not the wide-eyed kind she expected. Realizing the weight of what just unfolded, Madam Hooch turned solemn. This wasn't just a clever charm. This was spellcraft evolution unfolding in real time, and Alex Locke was its architect. Madam Hooch arched a skeptical brow. "Mr. Alex, care to explain why your broomstick acts like it's got a mind of its own?" Unbothered, Alex replied, "Occlumency. I isolated a sliver of raw human instinct and embedded it into the broom using a memory encapsulation technique. It gives the broom a flash of awareness, temporary, but real. It's called the enchantment spell." Her disbelief broke into stammered shock. "Pardon, could you run that by me again?" With the patience of someone repeating the obvious, Alex did just that. As the truth sank in, she gasped. "This is as groundbreaking as advanced transfiguration. Did you invent this yourself?" Alex, ever casual, nodded. "Came up with a few new spells over the summer. This one just turned out decent." "A few?" she echoed, stunned. Spell invention wasn't exactly a summer pastime. Glancing around at the wide-eyed students who seemed oddly calm about it all, Madam Hooch realized they hadn't grasped the full magnitude. So she laid it out, voice firm. This wasn't just clever magic, it was the beginning of something seismic. The students all spoke at once, their voices confident and amused. "Sure, Professor Hooch, we get it, it's revolutionary. But honestly, we've seen this stuff before." Earlier that day, Alex had wowed everyone with a self-made potion, then casually pulled off a transfiguration spell that turned wizards into legendary beasts. So yeah, the enchantment spell? Cool, but par for the course when it came to Alex. Madam Hooch was speechless. Shaken, she leapt onto her broom and shot off toward the headmaster's office, tossing one last command over her shoulder. "Practice if you must, but don't fly too high. Got it, Professor!" The students called back, already swarming around Alex like he was the center of a magical supernova. He welcomed the attention, calmly sharing the spell's secrets, knowing full well his real edge came from raw magical force. not technique. A spell's power came from the one casting it, just like a legendary flame in the hands of a novice might spark like a matchstick. He explained everything, piece by piece, but the others just couldn't keep up. By the end of class, not one student had managed to replicate the spell. Alex remained the only one airborne, both literally and figuratively. What once seemed like the pinnacle of magical achievement now felt like chasing shadows on a crumbling wall completely unreachable. In that instant, they finally grasped the sheer scale of Alex's mastery, his ability to conjure the enchantment spell from nothing, while they could barely follow even with his guidance, struck them like divine thunder. Awe turned into reverence, and by the end of the lesson, every student stared at him not as a peer, but as a myth, wrapped in mortal, skin-loyal, obsessed, spellbound. As Alex turned to leave, ready to vanish into the quiet halls of his dormitory, time seemed to hold its breath. There he was, an old man with shimmering white hair, standing still as if he'd been waiting not just for this moment, but for centuries.